All right. Good morning. I'm pretty sure I am live to a grand audience of no one. Once again, I'm starting a little early because very important news is coming out any minute now. And I'd like to show the reaction. All right, over here then. Let's see what happens. We got GDP coming out, PCE quarter over quarter, continuing jobless claims, initial jobless claims, all at once. And the initial reaction is, well, who knows? I hope this is clear. It was just running through my head. So these charts are very clear on my screens. But will they be on yours? Because I have it so cluttered with all this junk. I actually expected more volatility than this and a larger increase in volume. Perhaps most traders are waiting for 9:30. I don't know. But let's take a look at the numbers. I like to use FX Street just because I'm used to it and it's clear to read. TradingView's economic calendars is pretty good as well. It's just I'm not used to it. So let's try and take a look at that. This is FX Street. Continuing jobless claims came in under what they thought it would be. PCE. I don't know how to read that. Let's take a look, see what it says. It's trouble loading, I expect, because so many people are trying to look at it. But overall right now, all these numbers look great. It looks like inflation is actually coming down. If you can trust the numbers, which you don't have any other information. So trust the numbers. That's all you can do. Don't try to play mind games with the market. You will lose. Okay, well, it's not loading. But I'm assuming PCE. I don't yet know everything about all these news releases. I often can know what one will mean in reference to whether the Fed will cut rates or not. But again, I don't have it all memorized. I do know enough to not trade during these major news releases. At least not right now in my trading career. GDP looks like it came in above what they were expecting. PCE, the way I interpret that is, well, it's quarter over quarter, that's obvious enough. It's this quarter or the most recent quarter to the quarter before. How much prices have increased. That's the way I would read it. Even though this number's black, that means its prices are increasing less than what they expected it to. The fact that prices increased 2.5% in a single quarter is insane still. But it's not terrible. To me, that points to supporting the idea of a rate decrease. Not a large one. I really don't think they would have the balls to do that. Not that that's what they should do. I don't know what they should do. I don't know what this is. GDP index. Jobless claims. 1,000 lower than what they thought. And lower than the previous quarter. I guess that's good. And then PCE prices. What's the difference between PCE expenditures? Wow. So one's, yeah, it's still not loading. None of them are. Let me see if I can refresh the page. All right, I just screwed myself. All right, well then instead we'll take a look at trading views calendar. What were we trying to figure out? Oh, PCE prices versus PCE. Core and regular. Change in the prices of goods and services. I think this is the major thing that I do remember seeing that the Fed looks at. It's PCE. And I do remember hearing that there are problems with it, with the way they track the prices. But that's not my problem. So you do see a decrease. But that's month over month, not quarter over quarter. No, that's quarter. Okay, duh. Again, not really a trend down. We were down, then went up, then down. Now, what is the difference between this and this? Maybe one includes some things that the other one doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, I think it looks good for seeing a rate cut, at least a small rate cut. How much a small rate cut really matters, and honestly, I think the market's way too high in expectation of a rate cut. Let's look at overnight prices. Get ready for market open. So overnight, this right here, this candle you see, that was because of NVIDIA earnings, which they beat in some areas, but disappointed in others, I guess. Once things settle down, what we see here is price come back to, that was yesterday's opening range low. And also, what else was that? I mean, we are kind of close to previous month's high. That definitely plays in this, but we bounced off of that and trended almost pretty much higher the rest of the morning, almost ignoring yesterday's close and stopping right at yesterday's high, which I often try to trade that if I'm up. Gotta sleep. Maybe I should set alarms to wake me up. But that's usually a great trade in the overnight if you can see it in time. When price reaches the previous day's high in the overnight, it usually bounces off it in some way. All right, let's take a look at the NASDAQ. Again, you saw this really large candle right at the overnight open at 6. Oh no, I'm wrong. Sorry. That is right after the close, before the futures close. So right after the normal stock market close. That happened. But again, price held stable off of yesterday's opening range low at 23,488. And it looks very similar to the ES. Price has risen since then. It looks like responding to the news a little better than the ES. Pretty much identical. Which is a bit strange. The NASDAQ has been lagging a bit the last few days. We'll take a look at that maybe later when I go through key levels to look for today. Again, we bounced, kind of went straight through yesterday's close. Didn't quite reach yesterday's high, so it is lagging just a little bit. Other than that, nothing else. Kind of did halt a little bit at yesterday's opening range high. Came back to bounce off of yesterday's 9:30 open right here. Yeah, that's about it. On to the Russell. Russell was not really affected by Nvidia, which, it shouldn't be. But the Russell almost completely ignored or was stuck inside these 3 key areas. Bounced off of nowhere. Well, nowhere to me. Maybe somebody had a level there. Halted for a bit at yesterday's high and has been climbing slowly since. Also responded well to the news. I just marked this spot this morning. They just made another monthly high in the overnight at 2398.7. Let's see what the industrials look like. Seems like the Dow had a reaction to Nvidia. I would assume it was Nvidia's earnings. Don't know what else it would be. Perhaps you have an idea. Price halted for a bit at yesterday's close. Went right through yesterday's high. Lingered there for a bit. And is now back to it. Also responding pretty positively to the news. I don't know how much further we could go higher. I forget what the percentage is now for likelihood of a rate cut. But if everyone's certain there's going to be a rate cut and it's already priced in, who knows how the market will actually react to a rate cut next month. Which, I don't even know what day the FOMC is. I should have that marked down. I'll look that up right now. Why not? /16th and 17th. I'll see it and take note of it once get a bit closer. I should also take note of any other major news coming out that will impact things. But like I was saying, I don't know. The narrative right now, AI seems to be dying out. It's not driving the market like it used to be. So now the narrative seems to be hope for a rate cut. I don't see them cutting more than 1/4 of a point. And I don't see how that could really drive the market any higher. Perhaps the next narrative will be onshoring or reshoring, whatever they're calling it. But that won't be seen in earnings for, 6 months at least. But who knows? I'm always surprised by how much the markets can rise. All right, where are we at? Yeah, moving on to gold. So gold opened right near the high, yesterday's high. And initially rejected it. Halted around 34.43. For what reason, I don't know. Oh, that was 2 days ago high. As you can see here. Halted for a bit at yesterday's close. Jumped back and forth between yesterday's close and yesterday's high. It's interesting that it price launched right up to R1 pivot point right before the news. If I would have seen this, I would have traded this. I should have looked at it. I should have seen it when I was running my numbers earlier. So every morning I mark down by hand previous day's high, previous day's low, previous day's close, all the other key points that I like to use. But gold did not take it well. The idea of a rate cut, which is normal, in my opinion. I don't know much about the relationship between gold and rate cuts, but I would think since gold is it's a place for money to go when the market's not doing well. If there's a rate cut, that means a lot of money will be flowing into the Russell mostly and other stocks. So people will be selling their gold to buy stocks. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's true. Because the whole point of starting this channel is so somebody can tell me if I'm right or wrong, or their opinion of everything. All right, let's move on to oil. The overnight opened right by yesterday's opening range high here. Eventually broke through, stopping near almost a random area. Right now everything looks cluttered with how much support and resistance areas are in here. And oil rose right to the pivot point right here, this yellow line. Then eventually broke above it. Bounced off of yesterday's close. Is now right here. I don't know much about oil. Maybe someone can tell me how oil reacts to different events. All right, let's talk about what else is coming up today in news. Let's see if FX Street finally loaded. Yes, it did. All right. So coming up at 10, we have pending home sales. Maybe someone can also tell me how that affects the current narrative of rate cuts. I know Powell's always talking about employment and inflation. Does he take into account home sales? I don't know. But I usually block out around this time. Today I won't trade from, I'd say 9:45 to 10:15 or 9:50 to 10:10. And then later on today, usually these minor things I don't worry about. New Zealand? Yeah, New Zealand. I will ignore this too. This I might watch out for at 6 o'clock tonight. Right at the open, I might not trade the open for futures. This sometimes has an effect in the overnight futures market. Major events in Japan or China or Europe or England or Canada. I usually watch out for that. So I might put a note for myself not to trade around 7:30 tonight. Tomorrow we all more PCE. We have month over month and year over year. I don't know why they stagger the data. Maybe it's just it's too much for markets all at once. They might explode if they had it all in one day. That's at 8:30. I would assume it'll be good news as well, in reference to a rate cut. It's just my opinion that there's certain people, certain big players that they either know, or they've been doing this so long that they know that others know, or that they just can tell from other data they gather that the news is going to blow a certain way. And it seems like they're buying in any chance they can the last couple days, especially in the Russell. Then around 9:45 and 10 we have Chicago PMI. They have that as yellow, but I don't think it has a huge effect. Michigan consumer expectations. I will assume tomorrow that this might not matter much. I think the much bigger narrative tomorrow is year-over-year PCE and month-over-month. I think Powell will be looking at year-over-year the most. So I forget how long ago it was that he was going with the narrative higher for longer. Recently he changed that narrative at the heck is the name of that big meeting they went to? Jackson Hole. He changed the narrative there slightly, and it was enough to drive up the probability of a rate cut from, I think it was at 60%, now it's at 80% something. It might be even higher now. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it is higher now. Yeah, we're now up to 85.3. It was 84.3 yesterday. That is kind of strange. And before that it was 83.3. So it goes up exactly 1% every day. Don't understand that. All right, what's next? Guess we should take a look at the upcoming day. What's going to happen? I mean, I don't know. All I can do is guess, right? So my trading style usually revolves around, I call them trigger lines, because I used to have a trigger set to notify me when price got close to these areas, but now I'm always watching. And I don't try to trade 4 or 5 different contracts at once. It was getting a little hard to manage. I need to get better with quicker order entry before I do that. But I usually wait till price reaches one of these areas. Such as right now, you have oil reaching previous day's close again. And then I look for weakness in the other indicators or price action. You can often tell just the way price is moving if it's maybe not so much in oil as in the equities, but you can tell just by the way price moves whether it will reject or move right beyond it. Even if it does decide to push through, often you can get a good scalp if you time it right. But let's look first at EES. So the overnight we came really close to yesterday's high. And yesterday's high and the overnight high are also very close to monthly high, new monthly highs. Maybe today will put us above that. I don't know. It kind of looks like it might. But major areas to look out for is definitely yesterday's high. If price is not able to get above that, it'd be a good place to short. Or sometimes what happens is price will go right above it and then come right back below quick. That's sometimes a sign that there's not much interest up there yet, and we need to bring in more buyers lower. It's a little bit hard with so many key levels in this area. I sometimes play bounces between them if volatility is not too high. But I would assume at the open the volatility will be up a bit due to the news. Going down, we have, if price does go down, we have the yesterday's opening range high, which once the market opens at 9:30, I tend to ignore that a bit more. I might take a glance at it, but this line will stop at the open and create a new opening range high. But definitely going down, we have the yesterday's open and previous month's high. That's the major one in this area. And if we do come down to find more buyers, this is where it will happen. All right, NASDAQ. Same thing. Yeah, let's just take first a look at the ES daily chart, just so you can see how close we are to making new monthly highs. Also in the overnight, we came close to hitting and rejecting again previous month's high. All right, let's move on to the NASDAQ. As you can see, we are not close to making new monthly highs on the NASDAQ. In fact, the NASDAQ will likely lag the Russell and the Dow and the ES. So going up, I'd say look out for slowdown at yesterday's high. I don't see us getting up to previous month's high today. But again, I don't know. That'd be a good place to short if you see weakness once we get there. Going down, maybe yesterday's open, but I could see us going right through that. Finding buyers at yesterday's low or previous month's close. Again, just so you know, these areas are Previous one's close is at 23,365. Yesterday's low is at 23,428. Area, generally around that area. So for all closes, I use settlement. I don't use the futures close. I use the settlement number from CME. All right, moving on to the Russell. Let's start with looking at the daily for the Russell. The overnight made new monthly highs, just like we made new monthly highs yesterday. Lots of money will be flowing into the Russell. I usually get too cautious up at these levels. Used to be much worse, but you know, when I used to do it where price was moving higher and higher and higher, I would always think there's no way it can go higher, and I would feed all these ideas into my head about how everything's terrible in the markets, and there's no way it can go higher, and all these companies are so overbloated with their earnings, and I was constantly shorting and constantly losing. I no longer do that, but I'm not yet ready to buy at the highs. Still not there. But all right, going up. The current high. Price will definitely stop there for a bit. Going down, yesterday's high, yesterday's close. And then this area right here is huge. Right around 23.75. As you can see, oh, I still have the daily up. As you can see, this was a major area, 23.75. I could actually see us coming back to there and holding up there to bring in more buyers. But who knows? Let's take a look at the 5-minute. In the 5-minute, you can see huge support and resistance area. And also we might not even make it below previous day's high at 23.83, or yesterday's close at 23.79.7. All right, let's move on to the Dow. Good possibility today that the Dow will make new monthly highs. But I don't know. I always doubt myself. Going up, we have current month's high at 45,841 to look out for. We have the overnight high at 45,800, nice round number. Look out for price to stop there. If we come back, right now we're lingering around previous day's high. But I'd say if price drops, look for it to stop or slow around yesterday's close at 45,642. Below that, There's not much besides right around here at 45,540. That was Tuesday's high, roughly. All right, let's check out gold. Gold has been dropping pretty good since the news. If I was overly convinced prices were going to go up, I might use that as an excuse. As you can see here, this pivot point right here, R1, price has often stopped here momentarily. Let's look at the 5-minute. You can see the big decrease since 8:30. We halted right around yesterday's high at 34.52. If price was to drop today, I'd be looking for a pullback to previous day's close or previous day's high, because you have a huge area in here. Not much is going to slow it down. Maybe yesterday's open. Further than that, you have yesterday's low. It could drop pretty good if it gains a lot of sellers in this area. Going up, if we do go up, I don't think we will. Again, you have pivot point right here at 3465.5. I'd say beyond that, you're looking at not much else out there. All right, moving on to oil. Let's take a look at the daily oil first. On the oil, let me take a look. Looks like the overnight stopped right near yesterday's close and yesterday's high. We ended up dropping pretty good, as I already observed. Where are we going? I don't know. It's rare that I can make a prediction and stick to it. I usually look to see what's happening. Right now we stopped near yesterday's close. Looks like we might attempt it again. Off of a bounce off of S1. This pivot point right here. That's at 63.95. If we go even higher, I'd say look for a pullback to previous day high, previous day close. Might get slowed down in this area around 64.70 if price goes higher. Going lower, not much there either, besides this area right here around 63.27. All right, that's it for key areas I'm looking at going into the day. I'm probably going to stay away from oil. I usually swing trade oil once it gets to major areas. I don't really scalp it much. It can be very unreliable. I'm probably going to wait with the equities. I'm going to wait till after the open. That's right, 10 o'clock. There's news. I probably won't trade until later. Probably this afternoon. Between noon and 3. Alright, that's about it for the day, but I'd like to share before I go all my trades I made yesterday. Give me one sec while I get that together. I had a pretty big loser, at least one. Yesterday was the 27th, right? So I made a gold trade, some ES, some oil, and then ES. All right. All right, let's take a look. I often scalp real quick. And forgive me if I don't remember exactly what I was doing. So this was as you can see, I shorted 2 contracts, 2 micro contracts. Again, what was that area? Okay, so that was at that point, that was the previous day's open, right? And to me, it looked like, as you can see here, in the RSI, it looked like it was halting. Not the best trade I could have made. It was a mistake, which is why I covered quickly as soon as it made a tiny little bit of profit. Pretty dumb trade. It did end up dropping a bit, which would have been good, but there really wasn't evidence of it. I shouldn't have entered that trade, even though it did win a couple dollars. Was that the previous day's open? Must have been. Yeah, I don't know why I would have played previous day's open. No, it wasn't the previous day's open. Previous day's close. Duh. Yeah, that was the previous day's close. Anyway, not the best trade. Alright, I did an oil yesterday too. This was a bit of a better trade here. No, it wasn't. I made 1 cent. I don't know what I did here. 63.96, 63.95. So I shorted right near this pivot point. Now here it looked like, as you can see in the RSI down below, definitely looked like last time we were at this area, strength was up. Second time we're at this area, not as much strength. So I figured it would reject it at first, which it did. But I probably got impatient, covered too soon because I didn't like the price action. I don't know how much profit I made from it. Not a lot. Anyway, moving on. I made some really bad trades. My biggest loser yesterday was NASDAQ. Just give me 1 sec, I gotta connect. This, I don't know what I was thinking. So this was simply just a large area of resistance. And again, I thought price would reject this area pretty sharply because again in RSI you could see we were losing strength. The line was moving down. I forget what other area was in this area. If you look on the daily, you can see it was generally this area here. Seemed to be a big area of resistance. It is a big area of resistance. Is that a winner? This one was. I did, I don't know. I don't know if I won or lost that one. I think I made a couple dollars. But this was a big loser right here. Price came up, rejected. At that point, that wasn't yesterday, previous day's close. Anyway, to me it looked like price was going to go lower or higher. And I shorted it here. No. I went long here. Price just fell quickly. Was this in the overnight? No. Big mistake. And I remembered again why I prefer the ES. And NASDAQ it's great for people who read the DOM because you can see the liquidity come in. And if you're good with that, you can know when to trade and make a few $100s in 5 seconds. But yeah, I'm going to stick to the ES for a while. That was my first loser in a long time. Maybe I'll show I have a running futures record going back to April. Been profitable for once in my life. Using real money. But what other trades did I do yesterday? I know I had a couple good ones. Yeah, right here. This was last night, wasn't it? Yeah, that wasn't that good either. I should have just held on to it. But again, I got out as soon as I had a point. Yeah, well. Again here, just a point. Alright, that's it. Oh, another thing I looked in yesterday, I don't know how I got into it. Prop firms again. I was trying to look at, I forget the name of the website. Let me look it up quick. It used to be called something else, but now it's called NexusFi. It's a large forum for mostly futures traders and options traders, I think. But they advertise, not really advertise, but they have like promo codes for all the prop trading firms. And of course I went down a rabbit hole again of looking into it, thinking about it, watching reviews on it, and eventually I ended up looking up all the scams, all the not rug pulls, they're not technically rug pulls, but all of a sudden what was a reputable firm starts making up silly excuses to deny payouts to people. And I went from considering it again to thinking, what the hell am I thinking? There's no way. It just doesn't make sense. Again, the logic isn't there. Especially when I have a pretty decent pool of money to play with right now. Why the hell would I pay money to someone to give me the chance to trade with real money with them? No, I just get better trading my own money. And then it gets crazy. You get into people putting out hit pieces on like Top Step or Apex. Apex, I used to use it. I still get calls from them. But you have this guy putting out hit pieces on Apex. And it seems genuine. And then you look in his bio or you look at the end of his videos and he's pushing a different prop firm. It seems even shadier. It's just like this huge rabbit hole. You can't find an answer on, are any of them legit? Are any of them okay? Because you get into this crazy hole of people scamming other people as much as they can. My advice, anyone wanting to do a prop firm, save $200, trade micros. You don't need a prop firm. In fact, it would be nice one day to actually make a real prop firm. One that actually does teach good methods to people and gives them a chance, and main business model isn't making money off of like how they make money, how they charge they charge you for evaluations. If you were a real prop firm, you would let people do evaluations for free, and then the really great traders, you would give them money because you actually believed in them to make you money. But no, it's like this weird game where, you know, they'll hire people, not explicitly, of course, because that might be illegal, but they'll push influencers to say, look at the challenge I did on XYZ prop trader. Look at the payout I got. And then a whole bunch of schmucks like myself will go try it, give them $75 to sim trade for them, get nowhere, or even worse, you get somewhere, and you better hope that they decide to pay you after all your hard work, or make some strange excuse as to not pay you out. Anyway, that's part of the reason I wanted to start this channel. I know nobody's been watching the last 3 days. I'm talking to myself at this point, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. When I first started trading 3, 5, 6 years ago, I haven't counted the years in a while, I wanted to find a community. I wanted to find other traders. And you always get the same thing. You get people who are knowledgeable, but they're clearly not good traders. Because if you're a good trader, you're not a financial guru on YouTube. You're trading with money because you're making money from trading money. And it's obvious. So then I refine my search to, is there anyone out there who's just trying to network, trying to meet with people or bounce ideas off each other, whatever. Just to have peers to challenge you. And there's really nobody. It seems that all of them, at the end, you see some type of mentorship, paid mentorships, or, you know, watch my free 1-hour video and then watch the video. And but if you really want to know the real secret, join my class for $1,200 or whatever. It's just, I can see why people think, when I tell my family I want to be a trader, some of them say, well, isn't that gambling, or isn't that a scam? Aren't you buying Bitcoin? Don't buy Bitcoin, that's a scam too. So with that, I hope eventually we can build a small community here of people who just want to become profitable traders, because I can see the potential. I'm starting to make money after 5 years of losing. I've just recently made back all the money I've lost. Well, I'd have to do the math. I'm not positive, but I'm over the hump, and now I'm at a spot where I really want to become more professional, take it to the next level, and make a full living on this. Right now, I have another job, and it sucks. I work another job, and then work at this job on top of it. Well, it's all privilege, isn't it? With that, I'm done. Except for, let's take a look, market open. The initial open is positive, and we already jumped above, what is that, yesterday's high? Yep. Maybe the overnight high. Ooh, we're very close to, wait a minute. See, I wonder, TradingView seems to be not working quite right. I swear I changed this value, 6509, this morning. It just didn't update on my charts for some reason. I have the global setting on. Usually that will transfer any illustrations or key levels or anything like that you have over to every instance of that chart. But it doesn't seem to always work right. Alright, I'm gonna go. I got things to do. See you next time.